we anticipated, actually. Exceeds our expectations already. I'm Dick Deseri. I'm one of the library trustees. Alex Burke is with the Historical Museum
of Old Newbury.
He will be the facilitator, moderator, pointer and say talk and don't talk or whatever. Not to her.
I have my own control mechanism here.
So just a little bit of background on why we're doing this and what the impetus for this was. A little over a year or so ago, maybe, Jim was doing his.
Closer to two.
Is it two?
Time flies.
Time does fly. So Jim did his presentation on the mines, and at the end of it, a group of people were standing around talking about growing up in Newbury, and they were relaying stories about their experiences and their childhood and so forth. I said, would you be interested in sharing this information if we were able to put something together? I guess it has taken us 2 years to put it together. So the seeds have been germinating for that period of time, and this coincides with our effort at the library to focus more attention on our local history. We have a room chock full of data, books and documents, and we're beginning to work on cataloging more thoroughly than what we have in the past. One of our staff people is training to be an archivist. Because of budgetary issues, the best we can do at this point, we've got her working on this stuff 3 hours every 2 weeks. So it's a very slow process. Hopefully going forward, if the budget increases a little bit, we're able to put a little more time and effort into that going forward. We're looking for grants from various organizations to help us with archival work. So this is going to add to that process. I think our goal is to capture people's memories of growing up in town. Everybody's experiences are going to be somewhat different. Even if you experience the same thing, your perception of it is going to be a little different than somebody else's. And we feel that this will help capture the culture and the character of the community that we live in. I mean, this all built up to what we have today. And we're going to do a video, audio recording, so be aware if you're going to speak, you will be videoed, and it will become part of our permanent record going forward. Okay, so if you choose not to, then that's up to you. And if you just want to sit and listen and think about this stuff, we hope that this is the beginning of a process going forward. Not sure. We're open to all kinds of suggestions. This is new to us, so it's a new adventure. So what we did, we had a meeting of a group of people. We had Dennis, Fred, Jim Cunningham had met with Alex and I recently, Bert, Evelyn Noyes was part of it, Marsha Pierce, and it was interesting, and Dave Stickney was part of it also. So it was interesting just to sit around the table and kind of how it spontaneously, somebody's comment would spontaneously trigger somebody else's memory, and everybody just kind of took turns talking about what they remember growing up in town. And that's what brought us to today's day. I said, okay, everybody was interested in going forward, so here we are. And what we're going to do is we'll probably start, I've asked Fred to initiate the conversation, and as we go forward, what Fred says will trigger maybe somebody else's memory, and please feel free to share it. And it would be helpful if you identify yourself, and if you can identify where you grew up.
Yeah, why don't we do that first? Why don't we go around and do that?
That's fine.
Start.
Okay.
Why don't we go right around from...
Let's start. Who you are, where in town did you grow up?
My name is Joyce Davis. I was born in Byfield at what was the old Willow Farm, which is now Triton School. I lived there at the road, and it is now the Noyce. It's the farmhouse that come to done, but then it was the Noyce Farm, and the farm was born there. I lived there until I was 10 years old. My mother never would say, we live in Byfield. She would say South Byfield.
That's the start of it right there.
That's what Danny always says too.
And they got their own post
Yeah.
office.
I was 10, I moved to
Okay.
And I grew up in
In Old Town.
until I was 13, and then I moved to Newbury.
Yeah, okay.
So
it's-
Byfield and Old Town,
no,
that's where I grew
Where you
up.
grew up. Yeah.
I'm Nancy Harwood Burke, and I grew up in Byfield and live here now.
I'm Susan Bewig Nagel, and I wasn't born here, but I moved in 1958, South Byfield. And still live here.
My name is Liz Harrington Armstrong, and I grew up at the corner of Coleman Road and Elm Street on the farm there. And it is South Byfield. I have a post office, and I have a post office sign in my kitchen.
Mike Doyle, Liz was my 5th grade teacher, so I've been around a long time. But I grew up in Sorrells Lane. And then I moved to 18 and when I built the house, and when I left that house, I went to Morgan Ave and I'm still there. So I have 66 years in one little mess.
Very good.
Jim Cunningham, I grew up on Scotland Road. About a year and a half ago, I moved to Salisbury, but I still visit once in a while. And worked around town at many, many different jobs and in locations. I'm gonna talk to Liz about one of them.
Yeah, Fred Thurlow, brought up 12 Ross Lane, and
Remind
spent
me.
a lot of time between there and Parker River by the country club.
Wilma Cunningham, Buckley, his younger sister. He says I'm his older sister, that's why I did. We grew up at 40 Scotland Road. I have lived all but 9.5 years of my life in town, and when I came back in '74, I bought land from my dad, Dick Cunningham, and it was, they called it 20 Scotland Road, and then the town of Newbury decided to renumber. So I became 159.
I like pointing out the years.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dennis Casey. I was brought up on Elm Street in Byfield at my grandfather's place, which was a big house down there, Dr. Annis. And then we moved around town here to a few different apartments. One apartment was over the liquor store. One was over here in Lund Street at Steele's. And we did live at the IGA store, which is at the corner where the post office is now, and we got burnt out of that. That was burnt down, so we got burnt out of it. But moved around, but didn't get out of town yet. So, still here.
I'm a newbie now. I came here in '92 to raise my family, and I have 3 children in their 20s. One trying to buy a house hard to afford in Byfield now, but they hope to all of them will stay.
I just came in 2015, probably the youngest
Yeah, all right.
person in living. It's been a time limit. And I'm at the Colorado.
Bob Brown, I've lived in my present house on Middle Road for nearly 66 years, and I've lived in the same neighborhood in the middle of the town called Adamstown all my life.
Nice. Oh, actually, that's the first time I've heard that reference.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stair. I moved to Byfield in 1954 when I was 7, and grew up my formative years at 8 Central Street, which is the yellow colonial just opposite the Methodist Church. And, my parents built a house in South Byfield on School Street, and where my dad still lives there.
Joyce Stair. I grew up in Newburyport. After Jeff and I got married, we was living in Newburyport. We were looking for a place to bring the kids up, and he said I'd never move back to Byfield. However, we did, and that was in 1984, and we had a great time bringing the kids up. It's a great place. We love it.
I'm a 10-year recent transplant, and I live on Plum Island on Old Point Road. I'm sorry, I'm Carol, Carol by McLeod.
Emily Hoffman, I'm a newbie. I've lived in Newburyport for 6 years, but I grew up in New England in North Andover, and I'm just very interested in stories.
I'm Jan Forrest. I live here now on Plum Island. I've been there for 9 years, but I grew up there every summer all of my life, so I've been watching all the changes there. And I'm also on the Historical Commission for the town, and so I'm very interested in the history of Newbury and all the great stories and the famous people who have been here, so it's great.
I'm Dick Raven. I'm a very proud library trustee. It's one of the reasons I'm here today, because I love this place. My wife and I moved to Old Town 25 years ago in what was the Ilsley Gove farm on the corner of Hay and Green. So I'm really, we live in an old house. I love the old, I grew up in New England, moved away for a long time and came back because I wanted history in my life the way it's so visible in a town like this. So I'm really happy to be here.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no,
I was gonna say, I spent my first year of life in Newburyport, but I've spent the last 26 years in Newbury on Middle Road. Proud.
Eva Jackman. I was actually born and raised in Newburyport, almost on the Newbury line on Oak Street, but I've been a resident of Old Town for the last 40 years.
Carolyn Thompson Casey. I grew up on Forest Street in Byfield. My parents bought the house in 1953, and I moved away when I got married and came back. I bought my mom and dad's house, so I'm back at the old homestead, and I remember that fire.
I'm Joan McKean, and my husband Bob. We moved here 14 years ago, I guess. So we came to learn about our town.
Yes, I'm Bob McKean. We're both natives of Pennsylvania, with a lot of stops in between. And we live in South Byfield. But it has caught my attention every now and then in coming and going that there's a lot of history here. That catches my interest.
That's what we're trying to capture.
My name is John Thistlewood. I've been brought up in Byfield. I've been here all my life. I was actually on my way to the gym this morning. I went to the store to grab a cup of coffee, and my aunt here grabbed me. She said, "You're going with me," and I'm like, "Where are we going?" She said, "Well, we're going to talk about Byfield." Here I am.
And I am Johnny's aunt, Donna Stefanelli. I was a Thistlewood, grew up on Forest Street, neighbors with Carolyn and Nancy. And I live in New Hampshire now, but I still love the town. And I tell everybody, you take the girl out of Byfield, but you can't take Byfield out of the girl. Here I am.
Former town clerk.
Former town clerk, yeah, retired town clerk, which I loved very much. So it's
Good
good to come and
attitude.
listen.
Dana Davis. I grew up on Parker Street in Old Town. My mother Joyce Davis raised us three. Then I moved to the big city in Newburyport on Marlborough Street where my grandmother lived, got that house, and then bought the house up where Hillis Pit is, up on Parker Street where I grew up. And Mom's still up there.
Huck Stearns. I live on Central Street in Byfield, South Byfield. I was actually brought up in Linfield. Just moved here recently in '74. At that time, Byfield was a lot like Linfield was when I was growing up. So, same small town feel and everything. So I raised my kids here as well as I could.
My name is Alana Melvin Casey, and I didn't grow up in South Byfield. I grew up in Boxford, but my dad hung around with South Byfielders. He raised horses and hunted, and I was fortunate to marry Dennis Casey, so I've been here 36 years. And he's a lucky man.
That's on video.
That's why I was too.
I moved to Elm Street with this guy in 1972.
I'm Gail Fournier. I grew up in Lawrence in 1981. I moved to what I thought was Byfield, but I now know it is South Byfield.
I'm Richard Ananian. I grew up in Old Town. We had houses on Graham Avenue and Whittington Street, and I currently live in Byfield on Green Tree Lane.
Bert Noyes. My family was living at 24 Green Street at the time I was born, and then about 6 months later we moved to 24 Cottage Road, and then the town renumbered, and now we're 15 Cottage Road. There was some postal hijinks between 24 Green Street and 24 Cottage Road. And through my wife's side of the family, we had a brush with Harmazone.
I'm Alex Burke. I've been in Byfield since the mid-1980s. Total downfall, not the road, but on personal level, was to have met Nancy Harwood about that time, and well, we've sort of been struggling forward ever since, but over on Larkin Road, and enjoying the town hugely. So thanks to all of you for making it what it is.
I'm Chris Armstrong. I came to Byfield when I married Liz Armstrong in 1965, and we're in South Byfield. And the nicest story I've heard about South Byfield was in Jack Regal's history of then Governor Dummer Academy, where he, in his first sentence, says, "The academy is located in South Byfield, north and slightly east of Byfield."
Sandy McDonald, Central Street, Byfield. I'm living in the old family homestead. Been there for 48 years. My mother was born there. Grew up on Main Street before that. And actually lived at John Harrington's apartment for a little while, back in my toddler days probably. And I love the town of Byfield.
I'm Terry
Wait.
Livers. I live at 45 Northern Boulevard on Plum Island. I've lived there since 1989. I bought the cottage in 1981, and love the people, my neighbors, and being part of Newbury.
And Terry's also a library trustee also. Jean?
Jean Ackerley, also Newbury. I've been here for 40 years. We bought our house up on Plum Island in 1980. I'm director of this building, and I'm just so happy to see everybody here today. Dick's been talking about this forever.
Yes,
and
it is.
I'm really glad, really glad we got it off the ground. So thanks everybody for coming.
And I'm Tammy Cotter, proud to be Vice President of the Friends of the Newbury Town Library. Thank you everyone for coming today. And I'm a baby. I've only been in Byfield for 17 years. And I'm from just Byfield because I didn't know there was a South Byfield.
So already today we've had some success in that.
Yes. And educating us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Distinguished.
Bob, it was the Adams?
What did I say?
Adamstown.
They called my neighborhood Adamstown because at one time, about a century ago, everybody in the neighborhood was named Adams.
I just wanted to add something. Joyce reminded me of it talking about Jeff. When I grew up on Scotland Road, there were 5 houses, and it was a dirt road. My father plowed it with his farm tractor.
Oh, really?
I swore when I left that street in 1965 that I would never come back with it, and I came back and raised 3 girls. It just reminded me of it, that Jeff said he wouldn't go, I there was no, and now there's not a lot more, but there's Scotland.
It's so wide the road as well.
I did a lousy job hot topping.
So what we'll do is we're gonna just kind of open it up and we're gonna ask, Jim, go ahead.
I just got one comment. In our reminiscing here, I'm very surprised that I didn't hear the term Dogtown.
Yeah.
Well, to be very candid, in one of our prep sessions, it did come up.
Okay.
It wasn't lost.
And you do know the description?
That I don't.
There were 2 dogs to every pole and a pole every 10 feet.
Hey, Dick,
So,
maybe we should start with Fred teaching us all how to pronounce the name of our town
Oh,
properly.
yeah, well, okay, I can do that.
there you go.
I
I'm
noticed,
gonna get out of the
I
way
noticed
and
everybody, but I think it
enjoy.
was Eva, knew that there's no berries in town. But what drives me nuts is all the newcomers that come into Newbury pronounce it Newbury. Drives me crazy. We have a selectman that pronounces it Newbury. But everybody here knows how to pronounce the name of this town. And I'll tell you a story. We were in Newbury, Vermont, and which is looks a lot like Newbury did probably back about 300 years ago. And I went in the general store, and there was this old lady behind the general store who was probably my age, as a wild guess. And I said, "Say, how do you pronounce the name of this town?" She says, "Newbury." And I said, "Do you have any problem with new people coming in saying Newbury?" "Oh," she said. It's not unheard of. And we have a guy that's become a friend of ours from Newbury, England. And when he first showed up, my wife said, "How do you pronounce the name of the town in England?" "Newbury," he said. So, Newburyport, Amesbury, Salisbury, but they don't say it that way anymore. All the newcomers drive me nuts. And the other thing is, I'm really impressed with the number of people that are either still in town or still pretty close to town, because so many people I know of that come from this area have gone to the wind. I mean, have gone way, way. There's a lot of people here. But maybe what I can do to start conversation going is to go to schools. And I remember Woodbridge School, and I'm sure the Byfield School was the same way. We had 2 grades to a room. And I mean, I can imagine the teachers today would have a fit. But boy, I think we got educated really well. And it worked fine. And we had, 2 classes to a room, and there must have been at least 30, 35 kids between the 2 classes.
One teacher.
Yeah, and 1 teacher, right.
And where was the school located?
Woodbridge School is across from the Green.
Oh,
And the Bible.
Yeah, it's been turned into condos there now.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was always called the Byfield School?
Yeah.
The Yellows.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was downtown. Yeah, right, downtown Byfield. Yeah.
But then we also had, besides Governor Dummer, we had the girls' school.
Oh, right.
Down there where I grew up.
Yeah.
That was there for 100 years.
You gotta
Mary Lyons Seminary.
Then it was the New England.
Then it was the
That was on
military
Elm
school.
Street, yeah. Way up.
Yeah,
Almost in Georgetown, right.
It's almost in Georgetown. It's right across Tom Joyce's pony farm. We had a little shuttle for us.
Across from Tom Joyce's.
Yeah, right across from there. But that was for 100 years, the seminary. And then the house next to it, the White House that was next to it, used to be the old parish. And it probably caved in, it's definitely caved in, but there was a tunnel that ran between the 2 to protect the girls in the old days. I don't know if it was from Governor Dummer or the Indians. Protect the girls, that's what they said. But, yeah.
I had a dog growing up, his name was Joe, and I lived on Forest Street, and Joe would walk to school with us every morning. He would come in the classroom and stay there until we walked home for lunch. He would stay and wait, and after school he would meet us there. So, I mean, the dog would actually come in the classroom and sit.
Remember, I was in, like I said, 5th grade, but I had a black retriever. He came to school every day, but one day he went on recess and broke every ball. And Dick Joy finally says, "You gotta come in me." I said, "We're in trouble, dog." He says, "Throw him in the car, roll him back," and he says, "That's it, don't bring the dog to school no more."
Brett just reminded me of something that happened on Scotland Road. I used to have Henry Cahoon, he owned the school bus company. Pam just recently passed away, his only daughter, and I'm standing down at the driveway, because we have a driveway that the new owners can't use now, but anyways, this guy stopped and said, "Could you answer a question for me?" I was 8, maybe, I don't know. That was it. Let me see, we went to the Woodbridge for 4 years, and then they built the Brown School, 5th grade. That could have been what we call the Brown School in those days, but it's not a Brown School. It went from a round to a lollipop to whatever. This guy pulled up, and I said, "Sure, can you tell me where Haverhill is?" Well, I was so good. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know Haverhill. I knew April. So I go running up the driveway to my mother in the house and say, "Mom, where's Haverhill?" She said, "Oh, that's April. Tell him it's April. Tell him it's that way." So I did. But it reminded me that when he was talking about Newbury versus Newbury.
Yeah.
Some people who didn't know thought it was Haverhill.
Oh, yeah. Still today.
Yeah.
One thing I was today, I was gonna talk about businesses in town, but I was digging through pictures for Veterans Day for my father's thing, and I found 1958 pictures of the Fife and Drum Corps, okay, which was, and there's a picture of them coming down State Street. It must have been a big 4th of July parade or something in 1958, but my God, there was 50 kids in the Fife and Drum Corps then, and there's also a picture of the Fife and Drum Corps in front of the town hall, which is like, we had, the trees are amazing trees. So it's like, but he had a Kodak camera that shot stereo, and I got the pictures underneath, so it's 3D pictures. And like I said, because it's on Kodak film, the color's like it was yesterday. It's like, so we get some, and I found, off the subject, okay, I found pictures that we went to North Conway, and the Cranmore was built. I got pictures in 1958 of North Conway before it was anything. It's just nothing down there. So it's like, it's neat to see the old pictures.
My son, my oldest boy, was in that Fife and Drum Corps.
My brother Pat was.
Yeah.
And,
Darn.
and the other strange
He was
thing
10
was,
years old.
there were pictures in the parade of the Newburyport brownies and Cub Scouts. Oh my God, I think every kid in town was a brownie or
Parker Hall.
Come on.
Everybody was there.
There were lots of kids that were Boy Scouts, and then the girls were brownies. It was like 100.
Sunday school used to be held in Parker Hall.
Yeah.
Well, Parker Hall had an interesting.
Went across the street, I was a teacher there. We went across the street to the new old
It's not
hall.
there, it's now cemetery. That building had a lot of interesting history too, because that was originally built, as I understand, as a high school.
Yeah, right, I believe so, yeah.
And when I was at Woodbridge, the last year before they opened their own school, my grade was in Parker Hall, because we had run out of room in Woodbridge.
In the Byfield Yellow School, which I went to, my brother, who was 4 years older than me, had to go to the old fire station in Byfield because they didn't have enough room before they built the Brown School. Yeah.
I had first grade there. First grade was there.
Jimmy, they had the 6th grade over in the Byfield Town Hall, but we didn't have to go to Parker Hall except for religious education. I definitely remember being there.
I mean,
We were there for religious education classes. I went to that there too, also. Yeah, I know. She took your name down one time.
More than once.
Just once?
It was different in those days. Oh, it was.
Yeah, your knuckles used to get hit.
I remember.
Growing up, I think everyone would agree, is so different then for all of us than it is today.
Absolutely.
Of course, I lived on a farm. I had no idea what Boy Scouts were or any other activity, sports or anything. I worked at home.
Yeah, you did too.
I couldn't go to those things.
No, everything's
And
organized.
anything we went to was a real treat. One that stands out that comes to mind is the carnivals they used to have here.
Yeah.
Right.
With the fire department.
Just getting to that. Right, the drum corps reminded me of that.
And,
Because they always marched with the hand tuck.
Yeah.
The what?
Yeah,
With the
that's
hand
when
tuck.
the Black and
Yeah.
Gold up to Millie's at the dam.
Well, we
That was a
swam
treat.
there, and of course, right after they built 95, we swam at the rest area, which is there.
Right.
At the bridge end
Ojo's.
is, 95.
And the old minstrel shows.
I
We
was
still
gonna,
have all of them.
I remember, my sisters
Was
used
it
to
coming
sing
in the rain?
Really?
My oldest
I
sister.
did.
The railroad.
That was a great time.
The railroad crossing right down by the town, down by the dump. What?
there's two names.
War
there.
Rock.
Forward, okay, remember we used to swim down there and then when
We
the
used
trains
to-
came, we used to moon every one of the trains.
Okay, but on that line, on the other side of the tracks there,
It was me.
Night crosser. Night
I
crosser.
recognize you.
was the dog.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, a lot of people
Dump
don't
on the
know
other
that.
side.
What was that?
Exactly.
Yeah, it just as you go over the tracks on the left side.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
a
the
lot
old
of people
dump.
don't know that. They think the old dump is the hill.
No,
Oh.
no, as you went over the track on the left side.
It's Fried Mighty Swamp today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where the.
And also, you mentioned Fort Rock, well, they also, a lot of the locals swam just downstream from there where they called it New Hole.
That's what, yeah. How I learned to swim was my brother threw me off the back of a bridge and I fell down by it. And then like about 6 weeks later, I was swimming, I came up and we were having a mud fight, okay?
You didn't come up for 6 weeks?
They didn't know, my father didn't know I was gone for 6 weeks. So I came up and got clobbed with Parker with mud in my eyes. And I remember I went to Dan Larry, like he was going to dinner, and he scraped it out. And he says, Dan, you got mud in your eyes, what do you like this? It's like, but it's like, but the Parker River Bridge, I mean, jumping off the bridge, that's where we went on a swim.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
Talking about Parker River, how many of you remember Styson's?
Johnny Stice.
Nice, Johnny. But that's in Rowley.
Yeah, but it's not that far
Right.
away.
Johnny Stice.
I don't know that. I don't know that, right at the light, where the town is, that's why Stice, the creek coming out. Remember that, Don?
I certainly do.
There you go.
Styson's around my home.
Yeah, that was a dive, it was the only place to go.
I said, we just drove right back to the garage. I was like, oh, we had to go in 5 feet. We were 12 to 47.
I wonder what it was like a door, anyway. Oh, geez.
Oh my God.
And then you go to the, okay, it's the only place in town you can get pizza. Okay, and drive. And the highway inn. The highway inn was right here, the wayside was down at Food Street. And, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, there was one place that had a car. I was a charter employee in the highway car of the highway. And it shows the highway in, and when you pulled into it, it was, cars were like this. And you had to go down around, go into to get the pizza in the bar room underneath.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there was one light, it was only a candle. Nobody in town was supposed to know what's going on. Right?
Styson's, there's mom and pop foods in Raleigh. Was that Styson's? or-
No,
No.
Lemon Street, it became
That-
Lemon
that-
Street.
that- that was the
Yeah.
place I had my
Lemon
first
Street.
beer.
Yeah.
Mom and pop foods. Anyway, we go there.
Bennett's Hideaway.
That was up on the hill.
It was
is.
called
Yeah,
Bennett's
it's a private
Hideaway.
home now.
Really? Remember somebody told me up
They
there?
didn't
was
tell
like,
you
"Oh,
sewage
yeah,
from the restaurant there, that's what happened.
Sandy, did you play
Never
down
saw
there?
They had failed the sewage permit there one time.
Wayside
The
Inn?
highway is.
Highway in, no.
Sandy used to do with his father, and you
I
did,
used to play.
Lord, everything. Guitars and drums and.
No, my father played, my father was the best guitar picker in town.
Yeah.
Come on.
But you played.
I played the harmonica and the accordion. My brother played the saxophone.
What was the group? Bill Williams, his name was Rick
Oh,
Roberts. He
okay.
played.
Yep, all McDonald and his family.
Yeah, it was very loud.
We used to get invited to every party in town.
Good job.
Dennis, do you remember the owners of the Wayside Motel?
You know, I know, who was, what was his name?
One of them, I think her name was Ida.
Wasn't it Mansali, no?
That's
Or were
close.
they after?
I don't know.
Jeff,
I'm
what was
sure.
your job? I remember the
Oh,
Mansalis.
Yeah,
And then, the Nudies.
my job, it was actually the 95
Yeah.
motor race,
Oh, yeah, I remember that,
which
yeah.
preceded the
Yeah.
highway.
Yeah.
And I was 15 years old. My mother rousted me out of bed and said, the new motel in town is hiring. Get your butt down there. And so I did, and I got my first real job where I got W-2s and had to pay Social Security and all of that.
You must have a good retirement then.
But my job initially was to plant about 2,000 petunias.
Oh, wow.
And the then manager of the place, his name was John Somalia, Italian. His mother actually lived in the motel, and she watched me plant the petunias, and apparently she was a flower person. I certainly wasn't. I just dug a hole, plopped a baby plant into the thing and dumped water on it, and every single one of them took. So Mrs. Somalia thought I was just absolutely the best. And, you know, as time progressed under the name 95 Motor Inn, things got a little bit questionable in terms of reputation. You know, we've all heard, yeah, it was a mafia front or something like that. I guess it was. But I worked there for about 2 years. Did everything. Short order cook, dishwasher. I was the guy that could keep the pool clean. Did room service. And I got to tell you one story here that is a little bit of a shocker. I was well on my tenure as a worker there, and there was a fellow, all I remember now is his name was Joe, and he lived in the very last unit on the southern end of the motel. And I was out doing something with a pool when I got paged. And we went up to the front desk and they said, Jeff, go down to Joe's room. He's on the phone. He desperately wants to talk to you. I said, okay. Well, I had a pass key, so I went into his room. And I'm not making this up. I got on the phone and there was Joe, obviously very panicked. Jeff, you got to help me. I'm desperate. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, if you look on my bureau, you should find a laundry slip. Okay, got it. Just turn it over. There's a message on it. Please read it to me. Okay? And somebody's name. I could not make out more than 1 or 2 letters. And I labored over this thing for quite a while, as obviously Joe on the other end of the phone sweating bullets about something. But I couldn't figure it out. And he says, okay, well, you tried, thanks. I thought that was the end of that. 2 weeks later, I was down at the Dutchie's store down in Byfield Square. And any of you remember Claire Urgel? She was a waitress at the Highway Inn, and she was also 95 Motor. My sister worked there, it became Highway Inn. But Claire was a waitress there, and she also did some cashier work part-time at Dutchie's. And I was in getting some stuff for my mother,
And when checking out, Claire said to me, "Did you see the Globe this morning?" I said, "No." She holds it up. Headlines: Boston's 9th gangland slain. They found Joe in the trunk of a car riddled with bullets.
Oh, my God.
That's, whoa, Byfield?
My father was in industrial feeding, so it's like everyone thought he was a pharmacist. No, it's like, but he was in Medford, and he dealt with. He was always up against the Bulger gang. So
Yeah.
2 of his salesmen ended up in trunks of cars.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like it was a strange time. It was a strange time back then.
I remember when the Red Sox won, was it 67, the World Series? Remember, and they had the big,
They
I
didn't win.
remember I had my little babies in the
They
carriage
didn't win it.
standing
They
at
didn't
the
win
top
it.
of the
They didn't
hill.
win
When
it.
they
They
went
were-
by, we
yeah.
were waving like crazy.
They won it, but they didn't win it.
Yeah, they had their big celebration.
Oh,
there.
yes. Let me see.
And I've been to Stanley Cup celebrations when it used to be over in Rowley. EJ's. I was there, I actually sat on Mueller's lap, yeah. Yeah, they had their autograph, I remember those days, yeah.
Well, Sweeney gave 90 if you're going over there.
Yeah.
And we're also forgetting one thing. We talk about 95. What about Route 1?
Oh, watching the houses being moved and, oh, that was.
I've got a bunch of those pictures, but what I'm getting at is they renamed it to Route 95. Originally, it was Route 1.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Route 1 became Route 17, which was a tremendous flop
What was that?
when they built 95.
They came up with the interstate number, so that took care of renaming 95, went to 95.
Martin Millette did a lot of the construction work on that
Yeah.
highway, and he parked his graders and whatnot in front of my father's house on Scotland Road. It was an area that, I don't know if he paid my father or not, but I know he parked him there. Probably not, but I thought of something, Adventureland.
Oh,
Oh,
yes, I
In
remember that.
1957, 58,
Yeah.
somebody approached me at school, which would have been the Brown School, and asked how far 95 was, I guess, from where we lived up on 40 Scotland Road. And I said, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 mile. It's about 3/4 of a mile. The person that bought it, he had hired a gentleman by the name of Albo, Fred Albo. There was a house there that they got when they bought the land.
Bob Parker's.
Yeah, Bob Parker's house. They went from there to what, Fruit Street? In Byfield, yeah. And he had a wife and he had some kids, and they were going to have to go on the school bus. Well, maybe at that time, I didn't think so. The bus, I thought it went to Byfield or came down from
Yeah,
Byfield to
because Freddie
Scotland
went
Road.
to Byfield School.
Huh?
Freddie, the son, went to Byfield School because he was in my class.
He
I
went
know
to
that. I'm
Newbury
just saying, I
Elementary. They
didn't-
didn't open that till Newbury Elementary opened. So Freddie was with us about 2 years in the round school. And the bus went to Woodbridge, so,
Well, I met my husband there in 1963. I worked in the gingerbread house. He was a cowboy in Tri-City. And they used to do these falls off of buildings. 16, 17-year-old stupid kids. And he did something to his shoulder, and it was in a sling. Well, you didn't have clump in those days. And behind the gingerbread house was this small area with rides for kids. Up low Ferris wheel and all this stuff. And so they put my husband on the rides because he could do it one-handed. And he came to the gingerbread house to eat, and that's how I met him in June of 63. And we got married in 65, and we've been married 54 years. And,
A lot of people worked there for Byfield.
yeah, there's nobody. Wayne Brooks worked in the original thing. Was it Bobby Burns?
They worked in the
Parker?
pet
Yep,
shop.
yep, Bob
Did
Burns.
you?
Billy-
Oh, and that's
Bill Burns, Billy
Billy
Burns.
Burns. And that's another phrase I had heard. Parker Little was in here.
Marsha Pierce worked there.
Yep,
Yep.
Uh,
The first time, that was the first time. And then they shut down. They were there for what, maybe 4 years, 5 years?
About there.
And then the Casano family bought it. And they were from like, I think Waltham out in 128. And they're the ones that I worked for. My husband worked
How are they
for.
old? How old are
They
they?
only had it 2 years.
Because I think they were the ones that moved and went to Pleasure Island.
Somebody said
Yeah,
that.
play
I don't,
around
I,
with it.
that I
And
don't.
when they did that, they physically moved
a lot of the
Squares.
buildings
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah,
Not the wooden buildings as much as they had a lot of stucco
they had a lot on the west.
type buildings. Well, the western stuff stayed.
Yeah, that stayed,
Yeah.
Fort Apache stayed.
The western stuff, both the town and the fort stayed, and of course the ship. But they had a lot of others, like, for example, that Peter Pumpkin Eater
The old lady in the shoe.
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a pumpkin, and it looked like a real pumpkin that they had made out of cement, like stucco. And a lot of the Byfielders worked there as carpenters. And I'll never forget, there was the shoe, there was that pumpkin, there was a Jack and a Beanstalk, there was looked like a giant tree stump, which was for the Three Bears. And there was a house called the House of Jack built.
Yes.
And nothing was straight, it was all crooked. And although I didn't work there, I hung around there with young Fred quite a bit when they were building it. And I'll never forget the carpenters complaining that was the hardest building they built. Because when you're a carpenter, you have that mindset that everything has to be square and parallel and level. And their guidelines were nothing can be even. And it was the hardest thing for them to do.
Yeah, it was Art Rogers that did a lot, and Lenny Knowles did a lot of carpentry work down there. Lynchy was the sheriff.
Yep.
Okay, Jimmy Gagnon was the bad guy. And always,
Jimmy Gagnon,
Jimmy, because he used to come off the buildings all the time and fall down. That's what happened to that.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, yeah, a lot of locals. Yeah, he should be.
Yeah, and you think about how things have changed. I can remember young Fred and I. We'd run in the barn and grab a gun belt and a .45 and a great big handful of blanks.
Right.
And get on a horse and ride around the place, pretending to shoot each other.
I remember they used to have, was it Roy Rogers or something like that, used to come down there. They used to
Rex
have-
Trailer.
Rex Trail, that's what it was. It used to be on, like Saturday mornings, and they'd run a thing down there, and, you know, they'd advertise it, you know, it'd be on the thing, you know, come on.
The first time it ran, we ran
Yeah, Boomtown.
for a shorter time than the second time. And I always felt that one of the reasons is it was a shock when people left the place. Because originally what they did is they bought a ticket when they entered, and correct me if I'm wrong, everything was the same price, basically speaking. And you wanted a ride, they would punch you a ticket. And at the end of it, when you leave,
They counted the ticket
is
punches.
when they would tally it. And it was like sticker shock, people didn't realize.
They got charged for days pay and they left.
The original book.
The kids were out there. Swiss cheese, you know, they didn't think that, whoa.
I've got a question. All of this that you're talking about, in today's configuration, where was it?
State
Right
police
behind
barracks.
the police station.
Yeah.
Where the state police barracks is on Scotland Road, where the parking lot.
If you were going right down 95, just look to the right, you see the ledge? That's where it all, in the
There was a ship
lowlands,
there.
that's
Big
where Fort
ship
Apache
was out
was.
on the ledge.
Yep.
Yeah,
That
and Fort
burned.
Apache was down in the swamp area.
Almost into the, where the, DPW pit is
Yeah.
now.
That was
Across
Fort
from my house,
Apache.
there was a road that went into, the back road to Fort Apache.
Yeah.
To go back about 80 years, when I was 10, does anyone remember Beggars Night? We didn't.
Yeah, oh, good.
We didn't have.
Yeah.
We didn't trick or treat on Scotland Road. There were-
No, not trick or treating, beggars night. That was the night before Thanksgiving.
And you
Yeah.
go in
Night
knock
before
on the door
Halloween.
and say, have you got anything for the poor beggar?
Yeah.
And I remember Marion Bailey, a school teacher, would always bring us in and give us hot chocolate and cookies that she baked. We always knew there would be food because they would be baking for Thanksgiving. So that was great.
Well, that's a good point, because now my wife was brought up in, first 6 years were brought up in Portland, Maine, And she says, I never heard of such a thing.
No, most people.
And she said, when she was living in Amesbury, she never heard of such a thing. I think that was really local to here. Yeah.
Yeah, because Vegas night, I used to hear it was the night before Halloween.
No, it's
No,
the night
no,
before
no,
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. And then all the kids moved in from out of town, and they'd go trick or treating, and then a month later we go out for Beggars Night. Said, no, we already gave.
And the cooks hated us, I think, because they were real busy the night before Thanksgiving, you know.
No, we always got a lot though.
Kids are coming back.
Yeah, every year.
These stories are great, but I only have 27 years here, so I have some questions. I'm on Green Tree Lane, and I've been told, and my kids used to walk back, and there's a rock back there. And they said, yeah, right, they said that that's used to mark the town, the 3 towns.
It was usually marked the border between where Newbury, Georgetown, and Rowley meet. Georgetown used to be part of Rowley till 1850, but that was still.
And it was really marked every so many years. Yeah,
A lot
no,
of people,
they climb
in fact,
up on it.
yeah, when you're talking about that, you got Fraser Rock there, you got Greg Rock that's down here, you got Patty Rock up in the back.
Yeah.
There's quite a few different split rockers on School Street.
Yeah.
And you got Balancing Rock, Rocky Haystack
I
Rock.
mean, big rock.
And then they
Rocky
also,
Town
I've
in
also heard that Green Tree Lane is Academy Park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Academy
That's what the whole place was Academy Park.
Academy Park.
And why was it named Academy
Because
Park?
teachers that were
Because-
it was a development that they named after that, not that they all lived there.
It was
I
to impress wealthy buyers. Governor Dummer didn't like it, but they.
A lot of the
couldn't do anything.
teachers lived down
Show
there.
them the name Academy.
A lot of the teachers from Governor Dummer.
Right, okay. Yeah, and is that South By?
South Park.
The mail was Rowley when it was home delivered.
Wow.
Speaking of rocks, does anybody remember a reference to a rock called the Old Man of Byfield? Did you ever hear any more about that?
Robert Allen wrote something.
Got a picture from Jim Gage.
Yes, that's the one
Yeah,
I keep
and that's
asking.
all I know. You know, we never got any further with it.
Warren Allen
Okay.
wrote stuff on that years and years ago.
Okay. Jim Gage.
Where did I see it?
All right.
I've read some of his stuff.
When you get it. get
Let's
it.
share it.
I've got tons and tons of stuff. A lot of it was stories my dad wrote
Right.
and things like that. Fortunately, he got on the computer and he did a lot of writing.
In the end,
Did he
Yeah.
record a lot?
Pardon?
Did he record a lot of stories?
Yes, he did.
Someone
And-
told me
and-
he had, yeah. He remembered.
Most of them are stories that don't mean anything to anybody unless you happen to know the area.
But they're interesting.
Yes,
You should talk
I
to
gave the state police one as an example. There was, he's gone now, but the state policeman in charge of Scotland Road was Lieutenant Zipper.
Yeah.
And he took great interest in Adventureland, and he and I talked, and I've written a I've half-written a presentation about Scotland Road, which I was supposed to do with cable and never got to it. But regardless, my dad had written a story about it when it was the rock farm, or Anvil Rock Farm. And they found the skeleton of someone under a haystack down in the meadow where that Fort Apache was built. And all it was, yeah, a skeleton, but it had leather cowboy boots and a leather belt. That was, and there was just another unsolved mystery from town. And so at any rate, because my dad had written that, and it's a one-page story typed, I gave it to the state police for giggles and laughs, and they got a great interest out of it. They thought, oh, wow, gee.
Right in our backyard.
have a
Native,
cold
case.
anybody that's a native, how do you feel about the change of the name from Governor Dummer Academy to the Academy?
Ooh, how's that?
Totally
He
lost.
was the he was a governor.
He was, that was his
Yeah,
name.
and there again,
And that's disrespectful, I think, to change
today's
it.
The Asians
attitude-
don't understand the word dumber, they think it means D-U-M-B.
Right.
And
Hey,
it
man,
became
remember
spell
what
it.
they used to say, you
That
went
was
dumb,
what-
you
Go in
went
dumb, come out dumber.
I mean,
Funny you said that.
it's not even
Right.
spelled the same.
See, we used to say
I can
that
prove
when we
it.
lived right
And
next door.
any Newbury resident could
You
go,
spent
any
5
mayor,
years
go
there
in
with
down
free
and
tuition.
Newbury resident could go there for free.
Free.
And I really,
Well, it wasn't exactly free, you had to pay for the new life, you had to pay for your books.
Yeah, well, yeah, tuition, no,
Well, tuition
right,
wasn't that
had to
high,
pass
but
out
it was
exam.
high enough.
They stopped that.
a lot of people moved
Oh,
there.
yeah, and now it's co-ed, it's been co-ed for quite a
Yeah.
while.
Well,
it's
the weather is dominated by
Right.
females.
I know somebody who moved to Academy Park.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know what the address was, he lives in town now, his parents moved there so that he could go to Governor Dillon.
Oh, absolutely.
free.
This was
Yeah,
common.
happened
That
with
was
many
before-
families.
This was common.
Did
you have to live in town?
That was because the
Huh?
town provided no secondary education.
Right.
Except in Newburyport.
Correct.
And so, as soon as Triton was built, and there was an option for the
Yep.
students to go to that school, public school, that's when the tie was cut.
Is that when it
Governor
was
Dillon
The
was
free
private.
tuition stopped in
Governor Dillon was
1962
private.
under Wilkie.
Right. And-
Well, we had Newburyport High School before Triton.
Well,
It
yes,
wasn't
yeah.
in Newbury, but
That's
Governor
right.
Dillon was a private school.
But
Yeah,
there
but
were-
it was my understanding that there was an arrangement there with the town,
Yes.
that I don't think they paid taxes.
That's
No.
right.
Because-
No.
They still don't.
Well, now it's a different reason, but
Same reason.
they were exempted from the taxes, real estate, because they were allowing the students from town to go.
Right.
That was my
No,
understanding.
it was state
Right,
law
right.
allowed them
And
not
you
to
had
pay
to pass the
taxes.
test to get in, just
The-
anybody couldn't go to
The free tuition was a
Well, no,
public
you had-
relations
you
gimmick on the part of the
If you were a Rand
trustees.
student from Newbury, you could go to Governor Dillon.
Only if you
Until
pass the
You had to
exam.
pass the exam, that's what, oh yeah, there was an exam, like in college, it's an entrance exam.
Right.
Oh yeah, no,
I
there
had
would
to
have been a
get
lot.
tutored twice to pass
We
the
all were.
exam.
Twice. Did you end up going, Bert?
Continue to bust the
Yeah.
wire. I don't know what I-
It's
That-
fine.
that-
Otherwise, I would have graduated a year earlier from Newburyport High.
That's it.
Yeah, right.
Zip code, is all- no, oh, 18.
No,
Oh, and nine.
So another thing I wanted to bring up was
Who
businesses
chose
in
Byfield?
town.
Did they have
Oh,
one?
what's that?
It was always
Businesses.
something.
How many do we
Okay,
have?
so I'm talking about, I'm talking about old towns, since so we
I
had
thought it was either
the Colonial
18,
Pharmacy,
27 or 08.
okay, which was my first pharmacy job when I was
I
in
might
eighth
be
grade.
doing something.
And then,
I might.
you
had the restaurant
I
down
started
there.
my store in '84. And
Great
then
job,
John
Pete.
Tracy had a pharmacy over, where was his pharmacy over? I totally don't forget. Was it Pearson Plaza?
Pearson Plaza.
Okay, so John had a pharmacy. T-Ball was a pharmacist, we were selectmen together back in 2001. I remember, some of you walked in and goes, is everyone gonna be a pharmacist to be a selectman in town? But I'm telling you, the Colonial Pharmacy, Bob Doyle was no relation, my first employer. And every year he had Santa Claus come in. And his brother Paul played Santa Claus, and Paul was a funny bastard, okay? And by the time everyone from Newbury came in, it gave Paul a net. Okay, and by the time the night into the day came, Paul was 4 sheets to the wind playing Santa Claus. So this past year, a kid bought the corner cupboard, which Paul Burke owned. I'm not sure who owned it before Paul, but maybe Paul started it.
Oh,
Bakers, yeah,
Keith Walton started
Keith
it.
Walton,
Yeah.
Keith Walton, okay, Keith
He
Walton.
started that for his wife, didn't he?
Keith Walton built Hanover Street.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so we had the corner cupboard, a kid from Revere bought it last year. And he's a really good kid, but you know, from Revere, he expected it to be lights out right away, and I said, it's gonna take like 3 years anyway, because the guy that had before him closed the weekend. Who owned a package store closed the weekend, unless you were running some kind of a scheme? So to help him out last year, I played Santa Claus. Because all I can remember from Bob, so we had pictures in front of beer coolers for the kids. And we're doing it again this year.
Was Isaacson still there when you,
Who?
free job, Isaacson?
Right,
that
that
was
was my uncle.
country store,
Country
country
store.
store. I thought it was,
store.
yeah.
That was my
Across the
uncle.
street, yeah.
That was
Country
the one?
store was built by my uncle Bert Lund. Yeah. Country store, now it's, what is it?
No,
Butchery.
didn't Lutz have a store out on the corner before that?
No, not once.
What was?
But no, there was a store on the corner, yeah.
Well, Pop Davis's store.
Yeah, there you go, right.
They tore it down to build a
Across
coffee
from
Oh.
shop,
Town
and they
Hall.
moved the coffee
Right
shop.
now it's a bank.
You know, it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
so we
now
had
it's
the coffee
big.
shop,
How
we
many
had the
stores
coffee
we
shop.
have here in Byfield?
Remember that coffee shop?
Oh, I never
You
went
know-
back to Byfield after we moved to the old town.
Yeah, you know, there's a
Come
lot,
on.
there's a lot of talk here,
I don't
there's
remember
more
much about
Byfielders
that.
here than there are Old Towners, but there's a lot of talk here of Byfielders and Old Towners. I haven't heard anything on Plum Island. And I know, we have some Plum Islanders here, that's right, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. What was Plum Island in those days?
Well, they had a dance hall, they had a roller skating.
How many people lived
Yeah,
on Plum
that
Island
was
in
like,
those
it's just a
days?
summer home.
Yeah,
Very few people lived there.
How many?
Very few people.
Very few people lived
Handful,
there.
maybe?
When I was going to school, Stanwoods lived down there.
Yeah, there you go.
They had to walk all the way out to.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Yeah,
yeah.
I did go, but my
Stanwood,
mother-
that's on the corner of Ross Lane.
Yeah, right.
No,
Not Ross
no,
Lane.
no.
It's right by
Stanwood
the
there.
hall.
No, Stanwood,
Oh, yes, I
their
remember
father,
Stanwood
their
living
father
there.
was a manager of the refuge. He lived where the maintenance buildings are now, which is halfway down the refuge. That's where they lived. There was
Who
a
lived
house
in the
there.
house on the corner? Newbury and.
That was a Stanwood.
So eventually they had to move there.
I told you the Stanwoods lived.
No, but back in the day,
100 years
they
ago.
lived on the island, and Bert and I were in class together, and we had, 3 or 4 Stanwoods between the two classes there. We had Hank,
Lenny.
Lenny, Squeaky, 3. We had 3 of them, right?
Everyone,
The others were
everyone had a
older
nickname.
than
But
Everyone
we
had
had
a
3 kids in our class from Plum Island that were Stanwoods, and we had 2 other kids who were transients, who were living in cottages temporarily.
And the Hiltons.
And the Hiltons lived down there too.
George Hill.
That's true, all right, George Hill, I
George Hill.
forgot.
Oh,
But
yeah,
there's
they-
hardly anybody lives on Plum Island. And these people
Year round.
should know that.
Year
And the
round.
other thing I was gonna mention about Plum
What was
Island.
out there then?
I mean,
What was out there?
Cottage. But the other thing I wanted to mention is, people mentioned about moving houses here earlier on with regards to 95 and things. But I lived at 12 Rawls Lane, and I remember the trucks going up and down Rawls Lane. I mean, it was a constant parade. Keefe or O'Keefe, I forgot which name it was.
Henry Keefe.
Henry Keefe ran a moving business, and in those days, they moved cottages down there like toys. I mean, they were moving cottages all the time to save them from the ocean. And in the 50s, they lost a lot of cottages down there. And almost all those spots are now built
Oh, yeah.
on stilts with cottages that are bound to go out sooner
I
or
was
later.
gonna say-
Well, they aren't cottages. They're
I want to
big-
say something about Plum Island. Grace Daly, who many of you might have known, her husband was the caretaker of the Haverhill Country Club. They lived on Plum Island in the 40s, in the Pocahontas, which was at the corner of Northern Boulevard and 16th Street. And in
Okay.
1969, they moved that cottage back and built the cottage that, well, it's a house that's there now. But there were some people living there. They didn't have any children, but they used to live on the grounds of the Haverhill Country Club. But they owned the Pocahontas, so they didn't have kids there. But on 14th Street, there was a family.
Very few, though. Very few.
My mother's aunt and uncle, Fran, no, my mother's, yeah, Fran Keller and Steve Keller owned the Leonardo, which was the first club down there. And it was,
Oh, yeah.
it was a steakhouse, bar, okay, it was it's a beach, it was the first beach corner. Okay, and they lived across the street from the old package store, okay, and
Yep.
they died in a fire in 1960.
Oh, right, Ernie Guilford was there
No,
too,
and
right?
the fire, like I said, and so the weird thing is, I got called to the house this year as selectman, okay, because they had a problem with the road next to them. And I said, which house do you live in, Fran? She goes, this one. I goes, oh my God, it's yeah, I haven't been in this house since the fire. And she says, you knew the people. I said, my great aunt uncle. Okay, and then she says, get upstairs, get up upstairs. The walls are still charred. And then she said, and we even put a plexiglass piece. I go, I really don't want to see it. It was a sad time of my life. The first funeral I ever went to was a double header. And I said, always like, whoa, this is always gonna be like this. But the Leonardo though was great. It was like I said, it was and it's where there's two big condos there now. It was down halfway down the main. It's like probably behind a little bit farther. It was in Newburyport.
I don't think so. I think it was in Newbury.
Because their house was in Newbury. It was right in the line there.
I have a question. The house I live in on Hay Street was built in 1888, but the barn is from either the late 60s or mid 60s or 70s. And we were told that there was an arsonist burning barns.
That's right, in 1969, you bought the old Ilsley place, Leonard Ilsley's place. The house is old, but Leonard had cows most of his life.
Yeah, there's still a 3-stall milking parlor if anybody needs to come in the basement of the barn.
Been there once and never going back.
But I'm curious, was there a series of
There
fires?
was a series of fires in the 60s, and I don't know. I just remember this. The 60s.
So they never caught the person. They never caught the person or people who were doing this.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've got a bunch of old articles. Okay.
Yeah.
I can find it.
All right, great.
Yeah.
My grandfather Colby's barn got burned down right on the high road. 131 High Road or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's 131.
That was an arson job.
And didn't Mrs. Bushy allow him to cut the trees on her property to build a new barn?
I don't know, he didn't build a new barn.
The small barn that's there now, next to the house.
Oh, that was there before.
Was it?
Yeah.
I think would be
The fire department did a good job of saving the house and the other equipment barns that were around it, but the big barn, it's full of hay. Dry hay.
Was that a farm?
Yes.
Yes.
Caldwell Farm?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Dave Caldwell's farm, and it was running a farm, and he, at one time, almost went to the Olympics. He tried out, but he wasn't accepted, and he lived on that for the rest of his life.
He didn't make anything farming. They gave him the post office. Martin Burns said to keep the family off welfare. And then when he had cows, he didn't have a bull, so he'd run the cow over to my other grandfather's farm in Rowley, even though he had 3 other farms nearer that probably had bulls. So the cow was pretty well worn out by the time he got
That ain't no bull, right?
Easy going.
What was his name? Dave Caldwell.
What did he almost go to the Olympics for? What was his?
running.
You go to Germany,
Yeah, he was a long
So,
Speaking of barn fires,
The building
there
next to the
was a
soccer
barn
field,
on Coleman Road
and you see
at
there's
the
a Hall of Fame,
corner where
and all the names.
it goes up the hill, just, and it's a sharp curve. and
My
there's a
son was
big,
building
huge
inspector, was a
barn
runner
there.
too, but not the way his
And
father was.
There was the first air raid in World War II in Newbury. The barn went poof. And my father was the air raid warden. And nobody knew where to go because he was trying to protect the animals on our farm went crazy. And the firemen were coming, but there was this inferno. And here was the first air raid of the Second World War, and everything was just chaos. And my really early memories. So I'll never forget that wall of fire.
What was it, Caldwell's?
No, I don't know who owned the barn at that point. This was on
Whitney's barn burned in '52 and Battis's in '49.
Well, this is
My
World War
father would be
II.
able to tell
Yeah,
you.
so it was after
And I was
that.
born in the Black Hills, so that's gonna be 42.
Dan Brown, that was.
And we mentioned those farms, but Dad worked at most of them.
And Willem
He worked
Rock
at
That is when that
was
was.
a terrible fire.
And he worked at, no, Whitney's was first.
Before that, it
The
was
animals
Whitney's.
were in the barn.
Yeah.
And it was awful.
Because he worked at Whitney's farm where Triton is, that burned. Went over to Battis's, which is where John Carahalis lived by Pearson Drive.
Yep.
And that barn burned.
Battis's burned before Whitney's did.
No, it didn't.
No, it
No,
Madison's
it didn't.
burned in 49 and Whitney's in 52. I remember Whitney's, and I remember hearing about Madison's. And that's how your father got to work for Dan Brown the next year.
Great, good memories.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He went to work for T. Burton.
Three.
D. Burton lived only a year after your father went there.
That's right, but he hired him.
Well, probably Hannah Brown controlled the books then.
I'm sure she did, but Burton hired him.
Since we're talking about fire departments real quickly, I just remember where Stanwood Sign is now on Graham Ave, that's was the fire department when I was a kid.
That's right.
Oh,
And
yep,
I- And Mike Toomey, who lived 2 doors down, he was, I don't know if he was fire chief, he's another relative somewhere down there.
He was the chief
Right.
at one time.
But, then I remember when they moved up Morgan Ave, but I'm saying, like I said, we are still lucky, okay, we have a great fire department, but we were so lucky for years, we had volunteer fire department, and I remember the alarm rang when I had the drugstore, and Vern's gang would run, Keith Walton come running, okay? People that worked in Swenson's, okay, they would, I think it was Carl, he dropped and they went. It's like in those days, we did pretty damn good fighting fires.
It was just like Byfield,
It was
started
like
by Frankie
Byfield,
Witham, okay, and everybody in town, I mean, everybody in town.
Right.
Dutchie had his store right there, okay? If you were in there and he was waiting on you and the alarm went off, Frankie Witham was running by with his boots on. Everybody would come out of their stores, I mean, Dutchie would come out, he'd be running, the store's wide open. He trusted everybody, I mean, everyone in town trusted him.
The door.
Yeah, the next store, the other, well, where the mini mart is now, was Art Young's. And then the post office was where the liquor store is. Okay, and.
Everyone
The
ran.
library was up over
Up
Dutchie's.
over Dutchie's, yeah, you used to walk in the back, and there was a little pot-bellied stove, that was.
But see, what
Hey,
you're
Brown
talking
was a
about,
librarian.
what you're talking about is the era before 95.
Absolutely,
95 made such a difference to this town.
because when they moved it, Fruit Street was right beside where the exit is right now, going down to Newburyport. That was Fruit Street, they moved that over to where it is now. They took Wilson's house, moved it back to where,
They moved a bunch of houses.
yeah, and then the other house is next to it, which was,
Yeah, we
oh,
had training, fire department training.
That's right.
yeah, they did that, but I mean.
There's a bunch up on Main Street.
Who's the house that, it's there right now, it's across from, Pearson's now, if you're looking at the Pearson Plaza, it's the house on the right-hand side. They moved that one too, because they took down, Dick and Hattie's house, which was the greenhouses. Remember the greenhouses that were right there? When
I have vague memories of standing on either the overpass or the ramps to the overpass where they built the highway. Wilson's used to live up there.
Yeah, they moved the Wilson house back, but it was.
Looking south towards the back.
Sandy, the house is, it's.
Just burpees.
And one house
Thank
over
you.
there. And all these trees laying on the ground where they had cut.
Sandy, you probably would remember, you don't remember me, Wilma Cunningham, but anyways, if you thought about it, you might. Jackie Wood was at the fire station when his house caught on,
Oh,
his
yes.
parents' house caught on fire. Was that Fruit Street?
Fruit
there?
Street, that was Fruit Street, he passed away down there.
Who was that?
Jackie didn't.
Well, who?
The mother and father.
We lost a
And
whole family.
she
It was Jackie,
remarried.
Barbara, Paul, Patty. I used to
There was a
baby.
girl that used to jump out the window
Bart's-
though.
Bart's
Bart,
brother.
Tom's brother.
John.
Yeah, John, it was John and
Right.
Barbara and.
Rogers,
Up on
wasn't
top of
it?
the hill,
Yes,
on
Rogers,
the truck,
it
yeah.
was Patty and Paul, I used
Well,
to baby.
that
She
was
made
one
the best
fire.
hamburgers,
A little more
so
fire.
We
bad.
had another fire over here on Forest Street, which killed, 6.
The Livermore.
The Livermores.
Yeah.
That was back in 1960.
I was.
They killed
63.
6 out of 7.
Charlie?
Mary Lou Forster.
Right up here, Forest Street was on the left-hand side, right, actually right across the street. Yeah.
I know the name, but I don't remember the house.
And he died in the fire in 63.
63.
The house is still there, I guess it was fixed up.
Who's that?
Charlie Livermore.
The Livermores was in 1960.
63 for the fire. I was in high school.
Yeah, I think 4 of them perished in the fire.
They did.
Well, there were four,
6063.
there were four on that street too that died. Stepfather, the mother, and two kids from the second marriage. And Jackie was at the fire station hanging out with the kids, and his sister jumped out the window. She was on the second floor, and I think she broke around, but she was able to have somebody call the fire department. Jackie went down on the fire truck, not knowing where it was.
The fire was in 63, somebody may have made it out. I was a senior in high school over Thanksgiving.
One of the girls that passed away.
Teddy was
Yeah, the daughter and two of the boys, one of the sons.
Before we end,
You want to wrap it, Fred?
no, I just want to get back to town government. There's a lot of controversy today about police station and fire, town hall and all that stuff. But if you can remember back to the 50s, where was town government in those days? We had a town hall, and it's where the police station is now. But where did you go for town clerk?
You went to
You went to Joe Rawls' house, which was on High Road, where the Colbys keep paying. Where did you go for the assessor?
Was the Atkinson?
You went to Johnny, pardon me?
Was it the Atkinson house?
Yeah, went to Johnny Marsh's, and it was the Atkinson house.
Not in Burns.
Where was the police department? It was Fred Eaton, and he lived in the house above the cemetery across from the First Church. And that was, and he had later on he had an assistant, which was Charlie Woods, and he lived on High Road. But that was your police station.
It's sometime in that.
It was some different.
And now he Prescott got his garage done, his car and two others in it. Prescott Eaton got his garage parked. He knew who did it, and he didn't arrest him.
Were there elections going on at that time, or did these?
Sure, we had elections. Oh, yeah, they were all elected, yeah.
Saturdays.
Hey, real quick, guys, what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Sense of the group. Want to do this again?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good, I mean,
Thank you, Wilma.
Yeah.
Next time, let's go live
I have a question.
streaming.
I have to take advantage of all the Byfielders that are here. I was told that when the loyalist Byfielders came back from Canada, they came back to town, they said, "We back." Is that where we came from? I asked this question on Facebook and nobody had a, so where did that come from? And we use it all the time in Old Town. It's not just a Byfield thing.
French because they've been to Quebec. We, okay.
That's what I was told. So no one said that.
I've only heard it. Frankie Woodham told me that they used to say, "We Elma" in the fire service, and it meant danger. And it was originally "We Elma."
In Newburyport, okay, the river heat, okay, and my father, when he was in Sicily, just before DA,
yeah,
and he heard Dan Larry was over another boat, and he just yelled "Yeet," and the next thing he goes, he got an email, you got invited to dinner now, Joel.
These things go through all towns.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up in Marblehead, if I ever grew up anywhere, and the expression down there was "whip."
Yeah.
Go take it. It was forbidden for our mouths when we were little kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah, so we will do this again. Probably in the depths of winter. We all like to get out of the house then. But watch the paper and stuff.
Jean has already looked at the calendar and said.
Yeah, if people want to shoot for January 18th, that would be great. We'll make sure we put it in the paper and have it on the website. And there's a sign-up sheet here if you'd like to be on the list.
Hopefully this has stimulated some memories for everybody.
Liz.
And if anybody has any memorabilia, if we do this again, and you want to share